Honorable mayors and dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session. We are going to talk about just and sustainable transition and how cities are actually accelerating just and sustainable transition across the world. And I would like to start with one apologies. Unfortunately, we cannot have our representative from the European Commission as they're about to launch the Energy Pledge, and which is expected to be supported over 100 countries. And she is a bit late and stuck in the negotiations. So on her behalf, and I would like to apologize for this inconvenience. And I'm very pleased to moderate this session. My name is Gökşen. I'm a senior advocacy expert at ICLEI Europe. As you might know, ICLEI is the focal point of the LGMA constituency in the UNFCCC, and we are very happy to have this session on this day where we are about to launch the Energy Pledge, and we expect member states, parties to the convention, to accelerate actually the energy transition to renewables and investments in energy efficiency. And actually, the cities will play a key role here as all of the transition comes together at the city level, and there is a possibility to make this transition really just, fair, inclusive, and actually contribute to the members, contribute to the parties' objectives. So without kind of making it my introduction very long, I would like to give the floor to Mayor Collboni from Barcelona, to Mayor of Barcelona, to deliver us our welcoming remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Dear mayors, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, it's an honor to be the only man in this panel. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session hosted by the Local Governments for Sustainability, ICLEI, a global network of more than 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development. I also want to thank the ICLEI team for their kind invitation and support in organizing this event. Barcelona has been a proud member of ICLEI since 1995, and we are delighted to work together again. We are here to discuss how mayors at the local level are taking action to leave no one behind in the fight against climate change and the way forward towards the Paris Agreement targets. I do believe that this is our time as cities and metropolitan regions. According to the United Nations, urban areas are already home to 55% of the world's population, and that figure is expected to grow to 68% by 2050. We are heading towards a planet of cities, and we, the cities, drive local development and social, economic, and environmental changes. We are the closest democratic institutions to the people, and therefore we need to respond to the major challenges of humanity and the planet. The good news is that cities across the globe are already taking action now. We are stepping up to achieve climate neutrality, mitigate the impacts of the climate emergency, and protect our cities. But the need to push our ambitions further to engage everyone. Mayors are ready and willing to work with national and regional governments to set and implement climate targets, unlock resources, build capacity for implementation, and accelerate progress across key sectors, including buildings, transport, waste, and water. Barcelona has a long-standing tradition in the fight against climate change, implementing policies such as the Climate Plan, the Declaration of Climate Emergency, and the adaptation of the 2030 agenda in the city of Barcelona. Let me share some projects, some examples, policies and plans set up in Barcelona, which I hope will inspire further discussions. First, I'll share some experiences related to adaptation and resilience, which address more strongly the elements of equity and justice of the ecological transition. As you know, in 23 is on track to be the hottest year on record. Temperatures are rising across the globe, but the Mediterranean region is heating up at a faster rate than many other areas in the planet. Excessive, sustained heat increases mortality and morbidity, especially among the most vulnerable groups, people who either because their social or economic situation or their age suffer the effects of heat more directly. So, to better cope with the heat waves, we have created a network of climate shuttle spaces, more than 220 spaces, indoor and outdoor, such as urban parks, public libraries, museums, schools, easily accessible and safe with comfortable rest areas and free water for the people. In that sense, 97% of our residents have a climate shuttle less than 10 minutes away from home, while 8% have only 5 minutes away from their homes. We are also about to test some innovative solutions to generate new areas of shade where trees cannot be planted. We want to adapt our public space to the consequences of the climate emergency and reduce the impact of the heat island effect in the summer months. Related to this, we have just presented a new plan, Clima a Escola, to mitigate the effects of climate change in schools, particularly during the heat waves, and to expand the city's ecological transition by decarbonizing school premises and making them more energy efficient. On the one hand, climate control in public schools will directly benefit 55,000 students in the city. And on the other hand, the installation of solar panels will enable schools to generate enough power to their own consumption and to improve temperatures on their premises, as well as producing surplus power for the community. We are funding the transformation of schools with our tourism tax, with the tourist taxation. We want to offset the impact generated by the tourism to the city and to ensure such activity improves our citizens' well-being. Secondly, I like to see the green transition as an opportunity to create jobs in existing and emerging economic sectors. If we want to transform our cities and our planet, we need to transform our economy. That's why we have created the Barcelona Green Deal strategy, which is aimed at boosting priority sectors for achieving a new, more competitive, more sustainable, and more equitable city model. The blue economy is one of those strategy sectors. With more than 15,000 kilometers of Mediterranean coast, we are boosting new and more sustainable activities, which include logistics and port activity, maritime transport, fishing, boat repair, nautical, bioeconomy, blue tourism, research, training and culture, among others. Finally, let's talk about mobility. We are among the most walkable European cities. 3 of the 5 million journeys done daily inside Barcelona are done on foot. Either way, transforming mobility is one of the most important tools we have to drive the energy transition, moving away from the most polluting internal combustion engine vehicles to much cleaner means of transport and energy. We need to foster convenient, sustainable and affordable means of transport, such as a public transport or cycling. This has always been Barcelona's vision. More than 15 years ago, we promoted the public bicycle service called Bicing, which serves to introduce the bicycle culture in the city. Now, Barcelona are one of the most bike-friendly cities in Spain. This year we will reach more than 270 kilometers of bike lanes across the city. Then, in 2009, Barcelona made a clear commitment to electric mobility, developing a network of electric vehicle charging points. And today, Barcelona is the city with the most electric recharging points in Spain, more than 720. And all of this has always gone hand in hand with improving our public transportation. Not only by expanding and improving our metro, our subway, bus and tram networks, but also by making our vehicle fleets more sustainable. In fact, Barcelona was one of the first cities in Europe to start introducing hydrogen-powered buses back in 2003. However, we haven't done this alone. We have also worked closely with the other cities and European and international institutions. For example, since 2018, Barcelona has been leading and coordinating the innovation community EIT Urban Mobility, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, which brings together partners for 15 countries, including universities, research centers, industries, and cities. The aim is to develop mobility solutions to accelerate the transition towards more livable urban spaces. This is an important point, as our citizens want and expect institutions and companies to work together to combat climate change and improve health and air quality in cities. Finally, we, the cities, have proven that we can adapt and reinvent ourselves to become more resilient to the climate emergency and ensure no one is left behind. We have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the capacity to respond and deliver. We have before us an opportunity to transform our cities into more sustainable and inclusive spaces. But we cannot do it alone. We need support from national governments and international organizations. We need stronger funding instruments to deliver to our citizens and achieve the targets set in the Paris Agreement. Let's join forces to multiply our local impact. Let's build alliances and agree on a common roadmap to achieve our targets. Let's build today the cities and the planet where future generations will be able to live tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these introductory remarks. I think you covered everything that we are going to talk and then share examples. The importance of multi-level governance, as well as how actually different adaptation and energy transition plans are kind of creating other co-benefits for citizens. And it's not only happening in Europe. We will come back to the Barcelona Green Deal because we will also talk about the Glasgow Green Deal and Malmö commitment. But before that, I want to turn to Mayor Saki and ask about the Accra's climate action plan. Because maybe for those who don't know, the Accra Climate Action Plan is actually contributing to the nationally determined contribution, so the Ghana's NDCs. So this is a great example of multi-level governance that unfortunately we don't still have in the EU. And also the plan emphasizes the importance of integrating economic development and social cohesion into clean energy initiatives. So we would be very pleased to hear from you a little bit the examples of different projects and programs that you're implementing in Accra.
Thank you so much. And I want to say a very big thank you to the organizers of this program, especially this committee, and also to appreciate you so much for the wonderful work that you are enhancing us to do. And I believe strongly that the people of Accra are also grateful, and they join me to say a big thank you and congratulations for such a program. I'm here to represent Accra, and for your information, as the first female mayor after 125 years, I think it's necessary for me to involve in this program to leave a legacy for the people of Accra. As we all know, especially we, the mayors, are the closest friends of the citizenry, and they, with any problem, will look for us and come to get a clear understanding of what's going on around us. And thank God today we are here. Accra is actively participating in the Smart Energy Solution, that's CISA for Africa. And then the project, and we are in collaboration effort between the EU and 9 African countries, including Ghana. The primary goal of this project is to introduce easily replicable energy access technology and business models that not only provide essential services, but also stimulates local economic development and foster social cohesive across Africa. Through CISA, in collaboration with various partners such as ECLE, Akanta, Apia Minka University of Skill Development, or Skill Training and Entrepreneurial Development, and entrepreneurs such as Econess Ventures and Nestec Power Solution, among others. Accra has witnessed and successfully implementation of sustainable energy solution is ongoing, and we are seriously pushing and making efforts to climb the ladder with you, compete in that. We are grateful. Let me use this opportunity to appreciate ECLE for their partnership over the years. Notable, both Accra and Kumasi have benefited from clean cooking solutions and off-grid solar technology. In Accra, a biofuel cooker has been introduced in schools as an alternative to traditional cooking methods, particularly firewood and charcoal. This initiative aims to promote cleaner and more sustainable cooking practices, contributing to environmental preservation. And I want to use this occasion to share a common testimony of what we were able to do in Accra last year. That was the Farmers' Day. After trying to look out for the best farmer, and then especially in fishery, we picked a woman or a lady who was very interested in smoking fish. And because we did not want them to continue using firewood and charcoal and others, the price we gave to her was a huge cylinder full of gas and a mesh. And so I think they were so happy. And as I speak now, almost all the people into smoking fish, fishmongers, have started doing same. So that's an achievement. And I'm sure that what we also are doing is, after this program, we're also building capacity, doing capacity building in order that they will understand better and get involved well in doing fruitful actions. So in Ghana, in Accra, that is what has happened. And then in Ghana, the CISA project collaborates with stakeholders to identify barriers and policy gaps in energy technological solutions. So that one too is ongoing, and we are not doing it alone, but we are involving all the youth to also do such projects and to enlighten them more on it. We also are collaborating. We say that with collaborative effort, informed, refined policies, recognitions, and the development of innovative business models to scale up for sustainable energy technologies. And this is another thing that we are seriously involved doing. CISA also is helping us actively engaging in a capacity building action, aiming to integrate and scale up proven technologies and business models for sustainable energy solutions across Africa. Not linked to CISA, but may help answer the questions. We're trying to use them. We also have Green Jobs creation initiatives. And the city has launched programs focused on skill development and job creation in the green economy. So such as training local communities in renewable energy technology and sustainable waste and agriculture practices. So we have started this, and as I speak now, it's ongoing. We have had more small waste, what do we call it? Waste carriers. They use these small vehicles that cannot go on the main streets, but in the slums and many other places to clean up the whole place. And those ones, we call it aboboya. So we are using them as well for this green economy, that's the renewable energy. And we are doing source separation, that's segregation. We separate the organics from the plastic waste and many other things. We're doing all those things, and that is another encouraging and a time that makes the youth very exuberant, very, very well. And then we also want to use this platform also to say a big thank you to Paris Agreement. We had the agreement with them, and we are working accordingly to whatever they want us to do. And as they direct, we are working to that effect. And we are so grateful to them for giving us that opportunity to be with them and to work hand in hand with them. We also are doing afforestation and park development. Accra's Climate Action Plan incorporates initiatives for urban forestation and the development of green spaces. So as I speak now, we have green spaces in Accra, the Fuaseda Land Park, and many others. And beyond carbon separation, Those projects enhance the quality of life for residents and foster community engagement and promote social well-being. So these are some of the achievements that we've made. And by joining environmental and social benefits, these endeavors contribute to Ghana's broader climate objectives. So we have the waste to energy programs with the community engagements that we do. We also are thinking of initiatives not only to address environment concern, but also contribute to social cohesion by empowering communities. Excuse me. Sorry. So, as I said, these initiatives not only address environmental concern, but also contribute to social cohesion by empowering communities and creating a sense of shared responsibility, allowing them to chat or discuss issues in the community with each other, and this will enhance the development of the community.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about the affordable and sustainable housing initiative.
I need to apologize. I got a signal from the technical team that we are running out of time and they don't want to go as well.
I'll soon finish. I'll soon finish. So with that housing initiative, Accra's Climate Action Plan includes that project promoting affordable and sustainable housing by also addressing both environmental and sustainability and social equity. Yeah. So I think that on that note, we as the people of Accra, as part of its NDC objective under the Paris Agreement, these are some of the things we are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this example. I think you explained very well how the Paris Agreement gives us a framework to operate in, and then how actually cities are providing solutions on all the topics that we are discussing here at COP. It's like from health, so this morning we discussed about health, and that was the topic of the day at COP, and we hear a lot of different initiatives, as you said. It's like by providing energy, sustainable energy solutions, we can also provide different the health co-benefits to citizens. And we started talking by Green Deal, so I want to go to Glasgow to ask questions about the Glasgow Green Deal. Because you also, you started with the Glasgow Green Deal, and then you started to work on the skills action plans. You're also creating jobs by transforming the city. So we would like to hear a bit the Glasgow example. I think that will inspire many other cities.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, Glasgow, the just transition for Glasgow is absolutely at the centre of all of our thinking around climate action and our target to be a net zero city by 2030, which I know we share with many others. But Glasgow in particular suffered an unjust transition from being a heavy industrial city to a post-industrial city, and we still live with the legacies of what was done in the 1970s and 1980s, when entire communities were left behind, not just individual workers but whole communities. And to this day we have families where there is generational worklessness, where 3-4 generations have never worked and are really embedded in poverty as a consequence. So for us, when we're thinking about the transition to net zero and making that a just transition, it's not only about not repeating the mistakes of the past, it's also about using the opportunity of the huge amounts of money that we're going to invest in a fairly short space of time. We've costed Glasgow's net zero transition at least £30 billion, but also using that to redress the legacies of the past and actually undo a lot of the damage that was done in 40 and 50 years ago. So that's very much our focus, but we understand the just transition to be, as Elizabeth has already told us, and we've heard already, it is very much about job creation, about making sure that we really leverage the net zero transition as one of the greatest economic opportunities if we do it right, and we have a proper plan for it. But more than that, understanding that it isn't just about jobs and employment, it is also about energy, it's about your household costs, it's about how the transition affects you and your family and your neighbourhood, and really trying to drive equity into everything we do. And our Green Deal, the Glasgow Green Deal, its overarching aim is to enable and create the conditions for equitable and sustainable living throughout the city for every citizen by 2030. So that equity part of it is enormously important to us. And when we had the honour of hosting COP26 in 2021, in the run-up to that, we worked very closely with ICLEI, and we were delighted that the multi-level, multi-action pillars that ICLEI had adopted, that they adopted an additional Glasgow pillar which embedded equity and social justice as an inherent part of climate justice as one of those pillars. And we were very inspired, and indeed it was enormously helpful to us. We used platforms like the Mannheim Agreement, for example, to really inform our own work in the city. So underneath that Green Deal, we've started then to focus on the key actions that sit underneath that. And so more recently, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, my committee and my council agreed our Just Transition Skills Action Plan, which emerged from a cross-party working group. I have 4 parties represented in my council, and we did it very much on a cross-party basis. Indeed, one of my colleagues from an opposition party chaired that group, a group on the Just Transition, which came forward with some high-level recommendations. And so we're now turning those recommendations into action plans. But also in the run-up to COP26, we did a citizens' assembly to talk about climate and to get a sense of what Glaswegians, what they thought about climate, what they thought about the challenges and the opportunities, what it meant to them as citizens. And the thing that came out most strongly in the conclusions and the recommendations from that Citizens' Assembly was jobs. It was the economic opportunities, and it was people saying, tell me, show me how all of this investment in decarbonisation will make sure that my child or my grandchild has a secure and an autonomous economic future, that they will have opportunities that I didn't have or that were removed from me in that unjust transition that Glasgow went through previously. So it's very clear to us that this is what our residents are telling us as well. They really, really want to see us drive economic value for all communities, but particularly those left behind communities, and drive equity out of that net zero journey. So the Just Transition Skills Action Plan, we have developed, co-produced in partnership with a range of organisations. I'll not go into them all in detail. Obviously, skills providers like our universities and colleges are an enormous part of that. We are the education authority in the city as well, so we want to make sure that the journey right through school and then further or higher education or into training and apprenticeships at every stage is equipping our young people for the future that's coming, and not for jobs that are soon going to become obsolete. And I have to say, we do still have colleges in the city. We haven't quite achieved this yet, because we've still got colleges who are training people to be gas fitters. And we're not going to have gas fires and gas boilers just to be clear, people in Scotland mainly have combined electric and gas to heat and power their homes. That is not a job that's going to be available. It can't be if we're going to have a clean energy transition. So why are we still training young people? What we need to be doing is looking at the older workforce who do that job and have been doing it for a while, and making sure that we're upskilling and retraining them so that they don't get left behind the way that previous generations were. So we still have some work to do in bringing our partners with us, but what we now have is a very clear plan which tells us the steps that we have to take. As we can't do it alone as the City Council, it has to be done with partners, and then of course it has to be done with citizens. And so we involved trade unions in that plan as well. We thought that was very important, that actually workers' representative voices were involved in that. Less so at this stage, but this is our next stage. Crucially, of course, is employers. Because if employers are not signed up to a just transition, then it isn't going to happen. They are the people who are paying the workers' wages, who are creating the majority of the jobs. They need to be signed up to that as well. And we need to make sure that there are clear pathways into those high quality, high skilled, highly paid green jobs that are available to children, young people, and indeed older workers from all backgrounds. And that it's not only university graduates, for example, but young people who have come through other routes are still able to access those high quality jobs, and that we have genuine equity in the routes and pathways into to those green jobs of the future. So there's a lot of focus on upskilling, on training, on retraining, and crucially on trying to make sure that we reach every single part of the city, every single neighbourhood, and particularly those most deprived neighbourhoods who are still living with that that legacy of deindustrialisation and the unjust transition. And just quickly a point about energy as well, and that because the jobs part is only one part. As we know, there's energy, there's mobility, there are so many elements of it that we need to make sure is genuinely equitable. So in Glasgow, for example, only a little more than 50% of the population, or 50% of households, own a car, have access to a car. Most people use public transport. So if our focus on mobility transition, decarbonising transport, is all about privately owned electric vehicles, then we're going to miss out a huge chunk of the population and the part of the population who have the lowest incomes as well. So electric vehicle charging has to be part of the infrastructure we're putting in place, but if we over-concentrate on that, then that's not a just transition. That's us immediately getting it wrong. So we need to get that right. And on energy, one of our biggest challenges, our biggest social justice challenges in the city is energy poverty. And last winter, in the UK, you may be aware that we have, we're not alone in this, but we are the worst hit. And that's to do with policies at the UK government level, which I won't go into detail on. But we have had the worst inflation crisis in Europe, and in particular energy prices. And the levels of energy insecurity and energy poverty that have been caused in cities like Glasgow have skyrocketed, in particular in the last year. So as we went into a cold winter last winter, we were looking at energy poverty levels of around 30% in the city, still too high, going up to 60%. Right across the city. And really what that meant was that there were entire neighbourhoods where you had people on even moderate incomes, but low incomes, where paying their fuel bills that winter would simply be unaffordable for them on their incomes. And it was a nightmare situation. And we had to do the opposite of what Barcelona did in the extreme heat, where you created places for people to be cool. We created places for people to go and be warm, public places where people could go without, so they didn't have to put the heating on in their own homes. They could go into public buildings, get a hot drink, spend some time and have something to do, so they weren't just wasting time. But we had to create warm places, and we called them welcome places. And we're going to have to do that again this winter, because that hasn't changed. And in actual fact, just today, I've been getting sent pictures, WhatsApp pictures from family and colleagues of Glasgow covered in snow. It looks absolutely beautiful. But it's at least a month earlier than we usually get snow.
Yeah.
It's too early for us to be this cold and to be getting snow. So we need to be mobilising those warm places for people earlier than we had anticipated. So we need to be very careful about that energy transition as well, because we have a plan, our local heat and energy efficiency strategy. We have a route map to decarbonising heating and moving onto the kind of thing that in Malmo and other parts of Scandinavia they've done for many, many years, but we are very behind the curve in the UK, getting people onto heating networks and have those renewable source. But if those heat networks cause people's energy costs to rise, then we will be exacerbating fuel poverty in the city. So we need to get that right. We need to do that in a way, again, that is equitable and that improves fuel poverty, that drives out and eradicates fuel poverty rather than making it worse. So I'll leave it to that just now.
Thank you very much. I think that's... It's very inspirational to hear that you're already your starting point is that what the economy should look like in 2030 and 2050, and then transforming and planning the city with people, for people. That's, I think, very inspiring. And I also know that you are working very closely with Mayor Jameh from Malmö on the Malmö commitment. So I would like to
We're very proud to be an early signatory of the Malmö commitment.
Yeah, I would like to ask you, and Malmö is a part of the Net Zero Cities mission in the EU, so you're also transforming the city, and you're working with other cities in Europe in Malmö commitment to actually make sure that nobody is left behind. So I would like to ask you a little bit how you are changing the city and how the collaboration between cities in the Malmö commitment is working. And maybe you can explain us a little bit what Malmö commitment is about also.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be able to talk about both Malmö and Malmö commitment and the collaboration that we all have. First of all, I would say that Malmö started it's a couple of decades ago, decided to become a front runner when it comes to sustainable urban planning. Actually, we had to do something. We used to be an old industrial city with a huge shipyard industry, and when the industry began to have financial problems, we lost thousands of jobs. And at that time, we decided to make a transformation with a strong focus on green jobs, to create situations where we create green jobs as a solution to the decline in the shipyard industry. So we started out, we're also a fast-growing city, so we started out to build new city district with a strong focus on environment and climate. And we decided to make sure that we have all the infrastructure in place already from the beginning. When it comes to heating, cooling, energy solutions, waste management, and so on. And we also started to work very close with the business sector and everyone taking part of the development process. So we started to sign climate contracts. And then we have been working with this strong focus for several years, and we've been a role model for a couple of decades then. And then we realized that 90% of the city is the old part of the cities. And if we would like to make a green transition, we have to work both with new city district and with the already existing parts. And I would say that's the hardest part. We need to refurb. We need to make sure that we have more energy efficient solutions in the very old buildings. And we know that this costs a lot of money. It's huge investment that is needed. And we would like to do this in a way that you don't have the investment cost just transferred to all the tenants. Because somehow you can say that if it isn't affordable, it isn't sustainable. So if we make huge investment and we put the cost on the tenants, we end up in a situation where people have to leave their homes. And after a couple of, I attended the COP in Paris, and I met lots of mayors, and I've met lots of mayors since then. And we always talk about the green transition. But lately, and I think it's more for every year, I realized that we are struggling with the same kind of question. To make the transition, the green transition, we have to work to make sure that it's inclusive, that it's fair. Otherwise, we can't do it. So we started to work with different initiatives. Like, for example, we started to collaborate with, to give you one example, a private landlord. We decided, and he agreed to, or they agreed to make investment to make sure that they have more energy efficient solutions in their already existing buildings. And they agreed to not to put the cost on the tenants. And in return, they had the opportunity to build new apartments in the same area, to make new investments on the land owned by the municipality. So they had the return on investment because they could lower their energy costs, but they didn't have it directly. But instead they had new money from new investments at the municipality land. So that's just one example to try to find new financial system to make it profitable for everyone in it. And then we started to develop a new city district. It's already, well, it's not a new city district, it's an old one. It's an old hospital area. And we decided to rebuild it with a strong focus on circularity, to make lots of new apartments. And for the tenants, it's for rentals, to make sure that you don't have to have a huge amount of money to move there. But if you live there, you have lots of shared things, like we have built a mobility hub with shared possibility to share vehicles. It's like electric cars, electric bikes, and so on. But also, it's a piece of land where you can have urban farming together with your neighbors and so on. It's a strong focus on affordability. At the same time, it's a lot of green solutions with like share solar panels and so on. So we started to, we do try to find new solutions. And when I meet the mayors from all over the world, I realize, okay, we are struggling together with this. So when we had the honor to host the ICLEI World Congress 2021 and 2022 due to the pandemic, so we have it for 2 years, so we're split in two parts. Then we decided to launch the Malmö Commitment. And the Malmö Commitment is a commitment where mayors and cities agree to work to intertwine the green solutions with the social sustainability perspective. So basically you can say it's a work that we do together with ICLEI, and it takes ICLEI have a strategic vision, and one pathway is with a strong focus on equitable and people-centered development. So we started to design this commitment to make sure that we can share our experiences and that we can showcase our experiences, but also to make sure that we have measurements that are really focused, so we for sure can show that we are making progress. And already in the beginning we had several early adopters, but we would like to engage even more cities. I think it's really, really so important that we're working together in this, and we have an opportunity to strengthen our cases when we do it together. So by now, I just invite you to join us for the Malmö Declaration, for everyone that sees that We have to make the green transition, and we have to make sure that it's inclusive and that it's fair and just. So Malmö Declaration, Malmö Commitment is it's one important tool, I would say, and I really hope to see you as co-workers in this work.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you
thanks.
very much. I think we are coming to the end of our session, but do we have time to get one or two questions, maybe from the, yes.
Thank you.
I think the mic is coming, sorry.
Well, my name is Lukwago Elias. I'm the Lord Mayor of Kampala, East Africa, the capital city of Uganda. Well, I must thank the presenters here, the panelists. They have done well in terms of expressing their experiences in their respective areas of jurisdiction. But unfortunately, I didn't get that critical thing in terms of complying with obligations under the Paris Agreement and the constraints that we are facing as mayors. Well, it may be unique to us, the Global South, but accessing climate finance as local leaders is a very, very big challenge. Very, very big challenge, critical one. And I'm here to get ideas on how we are going to navigate this. Because when you look at the Paris Agreement, specifically Article 9, which makes it mandatory for developed cities to make a contribution towards the loss and damage fund, and how they negotiate in different blocks, G77 plus, joy this. And for us, we are not featuring anywhere. Now that we are launching this platform, we are in this summit, how do we deal with this challenge? Because on day-to-day basis, we are confronted with these challenges.
Yeah.
We are the ones who are mandated to ensure that there is a just transition. Everybody is is on board. No one is left behind, and so on and so forth. Confronting these daily challenges. Like you have given the examples in Glasgow, you have given the examples in Barcelona, where you are forced to bring people together so that they can have access to heating facilities. Yours is heating facilities. For them, it is cooling facilities. No. That's not the obligation of the central. It's local government. It's subnational governments. But we have no access directly to climate finance. How do we deal with this? I really needed to get ideas on that because it's an obligation under the Paris Agreement. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this question. I think it's a problem that every city is facing in Europe, and I don't know who wants to take that question and point. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
It's a really important message, and I would say I think most of us that are engaged in ICLEI, when we meet like the European Union, the United Nations, different people from the organizations, we have a very clear message, like 70% of the greenhouse gas emission come from the cities. But we just have like 15% or less than 15% of the global funding to make the green transition. And that's the main message in all different panels. Then I think it's important to discuss what we're able to do at the local level, but we are fighting to have the funding for the transition. So that's my main point when I say that we need to make all these green investments. It costs a fortune. And we can't put the cost on our residents. So we try to find solutions at the local level, but of course we need more funding. So 70% is met by 15% of the funding. We have to have a change, and that's our main message for all the global leaders.
Yeah, 100%.
If there's another question, I'm told that we can take that question. Okay, we will take two questions, and then the here and then there.
Thank you very much. My name is Philip from Accra. I think I consent with what my brother from Kampala is saying, especially on the loss and damages. The city of Accra is doing a lot. It's just unfortunate with issues of flooding, on waste, and just like the mayor of Accra is saying, a lot of work is being done on greening. The African side of the world is trying as much as possible to catch up. It's like you start crawling and then you start walking, and then before you start catching up with the walking, you see people running. And then you ask yourself, how do you catch up with the people running? And it's a critical issue for us as Africa. As much as you talk about the climate action plan of Accra, which we've covered over 50%, changing, greening our spaces, rooftop gardening, greening spaces, cooling buildings and all of that. There's still a lot that needs to be done. We're talking about solar, we're talking about waste to energy, so much of it. And it still stands at the same place. Financing, catching up with Global North, Paris Agreement. What is our take going back home as mayors, as city administration for the people? Just like Mayor said, they're the first point of call.
Yeah.
And then when the people come to you, what do you tell them? Do you have a solution for them on paper or implementation? Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
I think there's a particular challenge, and you're absolutely right to talk about the loss and damage context, because...
Excuse me, can you approach the mic to you?
Sorry, it's come a bit loose. The loss and damage context is such an important one, because what the global north cities need to reduce our emissions first and foremost, but loss and damage really is about climate adaptation, and climate adaptation is more difficult to get investment into, and because it doesn't have commercial returns, so it's much more difficult to get private investment into climate adaptation, and I think there's quite a lot of discussion about it at this COP. I was speaking on a panel earlier about precisely this, about getting all of that, when we know that the money is out there, trillions and trillions of dollars or euros or whatever currency you want to talk about, ready to be invested in climate, but too often looking for a quick commercial return. But that isn't going to be what delivers us a just transition, and it certainly isn't going to deliver a just transition in terms of justice and equity between the global north and south. So we do need private investment to be much more open to financing adaptation as well as mitigation, and looking at things like whether it's flood prevention or cooling and all the other adaptation elements, which by and large, but building a flood barrier doesn't have a commercial return. It doesn't have a revenue in the way that putting a new heating system in does. But they need to do both at once. If they're not funding adaptation and funding resilience, then they're actually not. They're just going to enhance inequity. They're going to exacerbate inequity globally as well as within cities and countries. But Katrin is absolutely right. This is a challenge that all city leaders are wrestling with. To essentially try and get the private investors to come directly to us and not necessarily always go through national governments, especially when those national governments' ambitions and commitments are usually much, much less than ours are. So come directly to the cities. But our challenge then is to grow our capacity and expertise to understand how to manage private sector investments on that scale. And I think there is growing support and growing networks, equally being one of them, but many others that are helping cities to understand how they can make climate finance work for them. But it's still an early area of discussion, and we've got a lot of work still to do on it, but we need to do it fast.
Thank you very much. I think kind of the multi-level, making sure that the cities have access to funds and cities' voices are heard at COP28 are the kind of two priorities of the whole LGMA constituency here. I think we have one final question, and then I will ask you and Mayor Sakni to intervene as the kind of with the final remarks.
Hi everyone. Can I do the question in Spanish?
You are in the States.
There is no interpretation, I think, in them. Yeah.
Okay. I just have a question in relation with the sustainable energy sustainable, and the question of greenwashing, because this sustainable energy maybe sometimes is actually in the maybe like in Western Sahara. Others companies, maybe Spanish companies, do with Morocco greenwashing, and this not legal. And actually we are attending the decision from European Justice, and I don't know why we don't respect the international law in Sahara. And just we say we want energy and don't know where it's respect the human rights and international law. And actually is this topic in Europe, because Commission is in the front Polisario, and we attending decision maybe this summer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you are right that the kind of do we need that much energy, or can we be more efficient, is one of the questions. And I would like to ask Mayor Sakni if she would have any final comments that she would like to share with us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that I have a comment. I think that, like I've already said, there is a need for capacity building, and we need a lot. We need people to come on board to assist us and to have the capacity building. In terms of financing, I suggest that, like it's been said, you show forth the little that you have. Then when people have seen it, they will in turn add more to it. That's a local adage in my language. So when you show forth what you have, obviously when the people realize that what you have cannot carry you on to come to their standard or to be at par with you, then they will come and raise you up. So it's just like you falling and you need somebody, and it's just like what we were talking about, lost and found. So we are now on the verge of trying to help the lost and found. Yeah. And so if that is the objective, then there is the need for we looking for those who are financially, we can't say around this time that they are totally financed, well financed, but obviously we have a little that we can use to support the less privileged ones. And I know that most of the countries who are seen to be rich can come to our aid. We know that after the COVID, there are so many challenges in the system, but so we believe strongly that we can fill. So the capacity building will help us, and then how do we say it? We need to also set our mind. That's the mindset project, when you are able to teach and let them build on what they have. And then when you get others, they will come to your aid.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will have maybe would you add something? No? Okay, that makes the technical team happy. I think we are going over time. Thank you very much. I would like to ask a final round of applause for the panelists, and thank you very much for joining us.